they trade favors with each other. They trade tips on how to rehabilitate each other from misconduct. And they trade young girls. That's all part of the deal.
More than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images were included in the latest release of the US Justice Department's files on Jeffrey Epstein. All 3 million files have been made available to the public online, with just a pop-up checkbox asking users if they were over 18, over dictating access. Well, the Times' Helen Rumbelow spent 2 days sifting through them and joins me now. Hello, Helen.
Hello.
You've written a blistering piece in the paper this morning. It's essential reading. Look, the US Department of Justice has cautioned that the release may include fake or falsely submitted files. As you went through them, you seem to have built up a pretty solid picture of what Jeffrey Epstein's world looked like, what his network looked like.
Yes, and I think that this story is still being framed as how it damages a few very high-profile men, whether it's Peter Mandelson or Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. It's almost a little bit got that sense of a tabloid of enjoyable seeing these, prominent men with literally sometimes with their pants down. And that will be a blip before we return to the sort of normal order of things. But I think when you go into the files and you see the extent of Jeffrey Epstein's alliances, networks, clubbability with so many men that were in positions of power, you start to think this is actually a deeper and darker and more profound revelation than I think we're kind of talking about at the moment, which is how very powerful men use their networks with each other, which are drenched in misogyny, drenched in women hating, to kind of hold on and help each other stay in control. I
mean, honestly, your piece, it made me think about this whole story differently, because it's very easy to, as you say, it's very easy to approach this story by thinking there are two angles here. There's the horrific abuse suffered by people, and we know about that, and that is in the files with faces redacted, but there's so many girls there, you say in your piece, just displayed like pieces of meat within these files. And then you think, well, then there are these powerful men getting together to rule the world. But the way these intersect, the language they use while talking about women, just sort of routinely, just while they're sending an email about, some banking matter or whatever, it's really striking.
And I think we're always told not to be paranoid about, the kind of secret societies that run us. And of course, that's, not true. And that we live in a democracy. But I think you're right. They do intersect. And it's very anti-democratic, actually. It's about the seizing of what you want when you can and covering up for your friends. So that is basically when you sort of look into the Epstein files, you see that you're kind of taking the kind of back off the backroom workings of this, and it's actually a really unique chance we have, I think, especially as women, to see how they, succeed at this.
Well, you describe these files as like a Rosetta Stone for understanding male power. Tell us, I know that there's some words and exchanges you wouldn't want to discuss on the radio, but tell us about some of the exchanges, some of the lines, some of the words that shocked you the most reading this.
Yeah, honestly, I was just skimming because, as you say, there are millions and millions of files, and they're very badly organized. So I that was part of the horror for me. I was literally dipping, and what I found was really, really gross. So it's unfathomable what else is in there. But yes, it is basically, I don't know what you can say on the radio, but it's the casual dehumanizing language about women. It's basically this kind of very grand declarations of romance and loyalty always to the men that matter. Young girls are used for sex and thrown away. Middle-aged women are revolting, to them. Jeffrey Epstein's descriptions of these middle-aged women, which actually extends also to Sarah Ferguson at some point.
His friend, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, their wives are called bitches. That's the mildest of language. And they trade favors with each other. They trade tips on how to rehabilitate each other from misconduct, and they trade young girls. That's all part of the deal.
There are no. It's like people say there's been this perhaps surprising focus on some of the older women in this story. Ghislaine Maxwell, Sarah Ferguson. They are basically the only age-appropriate women who seem to be in Epstein's world, and he doesn't, and he seems to, and the women who are in his world are not. They do not seem to be approached as human beings in the same way that men are approached as human beings. There seems to be a real conceptual difference in his mind between man and woman.
A deep conceptual difference, and I think that's to do with power. There's some exchanges as well that are so strange that I just couldn't understand whether they're jokes or not. I mean, at one point, Steve Bannon is in discussion with Jeffrey Epstein about how to rehabilitate his image, and at one point suggests that he should run a kind of centre for sex-trafficked girls. And it's just the prospect of these two men actually seriously, or even not seriously, I don't know which is worse, just presenting that as a solution to their pesky public image problems it's amazing.
Well, there's also moments that come sort of close to a kind of sort of quite shocking honesty in the way that like when he's discussing with somebody how upset he is about the accusations about Donald Trump, the recordings about Donald Trump talking about reaching out and grabbing women in certain places, and they seem genuinely cross at the way this is being covered.
Yes, I mean, that's the thing. It's this kind of, that's what these files do, is show that complete gulf between the public presentation and what they're saying in private, which we've known a little bit from what's been revealed in the news stories. But this really shows it. In public, people were condemning Trump, but in private, they were messaging Epstein and saying, I feel terrible for him.
Yeah.
I'm going to vote for him
the poor guy,
because I'm so outraged at what's happened to Trump.
It's remarkable. Look, I mean, Epstein himself, he used the Schrodinger's cat image to describe himself as both deplorable and elite. I don't know, what do you take from that? Is there a self-awareness there? Is there a self-loathing there? Or is he talking about public perception? What did you understand by that? I thought that was just fascinating, that bit.
That was absolutely, I think, the key to it all, because I thought it was actually a rare flash of self-awareness. He's basically sort of saying that he lives in this paradox, that he is both male elite and a male deplorable, but actually he is evidence that there is no paradox. That is what is going on. And this idea of a kind of box being opened, as in the Schrodinger paradigm, but it is briefly being opened, I think, now, just and we can see. But I think what will probably happen is that the box will close and we will forget about it again.
I mean, you write about this as being about men understanding male power. Is that, I don't know how you'll want to answer this, but is that as far as it goes? Does this make you think differently about men, all men you know, men you love, me? Does it make you think, how would they talk if I wasn't here? How would they talk if they thought I wasn't listening? What do they really think?
It's a really good question. I think, not to say that you're not a powerful man, Hugo, because I know you are.
Don't be cruel.
But I think that it is actually a very interesting Venn diagram between men and power. And I think also there is a generational shift here. It's striking that these men are all of a certain age and a certain level of status. So I don't know if that's dangerous or comforting, depending on how you feel about the state of the world, but perhaps those men are slowly aging out, but they are being protected, certainly in positions of power.